Welcome to the Lantern Cinema Podcast, part of a film society for the initiated, people who love cult, revival, and classic films and film history. Today we'll be discussing Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast and Adam Green's Aladdin with Adam Green. I'm Chris.
Holy shit.
That is Dustin. This is Hannah. And holy shit, we just had an incredible conversation with Adam Green.
It was amazing. I mean, me and Hannah have been Adam Green fans for how long have we been fans?
Over a decade now, I think.
Yeah, and not only like fans, it's just like, oh, you know, we love his music, which we do. We love the Moldy Peaches. We love everything that he's been a part of. But kind of our love of Adam Green has really kind of transcended so many, you know, certainly with me and Hannah's life, there's so much about his music that means so much to us. But
you have two of his paintings downstairs.
We have two of his paintings downstairs. You know, his art has kind of transmognified so much over the years, and we've kind of been a part of that whole
magnification.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just because right now we're coming off of, well, usually we record these in the afternoons on the weekends. It's like a school night and it's almost 10 p.m. So, which is crazy for me, but I think we all have the sense of being kind of tired but excited.
Yeah.
The interview just went so many directions I don't think any of us could have expected. So.
And for any Adam Green fans or Moldy Peaches fans out there, there's just so much stuff that Adam goes over here that, I mean, easily we could have turned this into a 2-episode thing. He was incredibly generous with his time, and, you know, any question that we had or any thought, he was certainly interested to talk about it. I mean, and then also just give us so much more, and it's just going to be a really cool episode.
Mm-hmm.
So without anything else, should we just go ahead and start this?
Let's do it.
Yeah, here's the Lantern podcast interview with Adam Green. We are so fortunate to have another guest for this episode. Dustin and I have been fans of his music for a long time and his painting and film for almost as long. Adam Green is a founding member of the Moldy Peaches, visual artist, and significantly for our purposes, he created the first iPhone film, The Wrong Ferrari, and was the subject of the Dima Dubson documentary, How to Act Bad, in 2011. Most importantly, we'll be discussing primarily his own 2016 film, Aladdin, today, and how it connects to Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, among other things. And the three of us were excited to read his first graphic novel, just released this month, a psychedelic war epic called War in Paradise. So welcome, Adam, and thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes.
So, hey, guys.
Happy to hear from you, man.
Yeah, same. So, you know, so for those who don't know, it's kind of late night right here, and we both just put our kids to bed, and now we're going to have a chat about Cocteau.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. Chris, are you ready for a synopsis for Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep this simple and short. This take on Beauty and the Beast is very unlike the Disney version that most of us are fond of and grew up with, or still don't understand. But the short version is someone who has lost their fortune and is trying to get it back and take care of their family, has had this failed business meeting and tries to return home at night, gets lost, and stumbles upon this magical, dark castle. And when stealing a rose to return to give to his daughter, who he promised he would give it to, comes across the Beast. And now, from stealing a rose, he is owed either his life or that of one of his daughters. Belle, his sweetheart daughter, who thinks way too highly of him, decides to sacrifice herself and go to the Beast's castle and be the one to let him kill or consume. But it turns into the Beast not wanting to kill her at all and being madly in love with her and being really sweet and awkward and kind of creepy, but delightful as her family struggles.
It's kind of funny how she says to her dad, just have the Beast take me, and he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of a MacGuffin with the whole murder thing. That's just shoved aside pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and as the three of us are watching it together, it's like, oh, so you were willing to sacrifice one of your daughters instead of yourself?
He has no problem with that, but it's like, I don't know if it's like a French thing, but he doesn't seem to care.
No, he's like, that's okay. Like, at least I have a day to figure out which daughter it's going to be, and
he has two to spare. I mean,
yeah, he'll live. But the family is losing their fortune and find out through Belle that the Beast has like this magical treasure. And then the rest of the movie becomes a struggle of Belle trying to take care of her father, but falling for the Beast and caring for him initially as a friend. Her family and former like caller trying to attack him, kill him, get his money, and everything builds into the Beast no longer being a beast.
Right. Yeah, and then and I think that the Beast was played by Cocteau's boyfriend.
Yes, and we're going to get into
as well as the Prince.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, but even before we even do the podcast, I have to clarify. Like, I'm not a real Beauty and the Beast expert. Like, not at all. Or a Cocteau expert. I'm just gonna like speak from my perspective about what I can remember and know, and the way that it influenced me. But I am not like a rabid historian of this thing.
Nor are we. We're just we're big Adam Green fans, and I can specifically remember you in various interviews talking about the Cocteau film. So there's a big reason for us seeing it.
Yeah, we picked this for you.
I can endorse that it's a great movie for people to watch. And they should definitely watch it at the Lantern Cinema.
Yes, thank you, man. Thank you. So, Chris, once again, another brilliant job of doing synopsis. Chris is quite skilled at doing synopsis of films that are kind of difficult to do synopsis of. So
yeah, it's fast.
Yeah. And then this movie, of course, like all great movies, comes with a trailer, and we all watched the original 1946 trailer. And for our listeners, typically we play the trailer at this point, but for the sake of this interview, we're going to put it at the end. So if you're interested in listening to the trailer, make sure to do it at the end. And also, it's in French, so yeah.
Yeah, if you don't speak French, you probably want to watch it.
Yeah. I don't know what it was like for you, Adam, but for us watching it, I thought it was a very unique trailer.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the formats of these old trailers, they're just tropes that don't exist anymore. Introducing, for example, the costume designer or the who else do they introduce in the trailer? Like different departments and
it's more or less his whole repertoire cast, right? Like he keeps introducing all the different, but then it's also with that element of like it's going to be a surprise. He doesn't want to let you in on all of the things that you're about to see.
Right. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like even just the way that I remember watching some trailer for like a Rock Hudson movie where it's like they'll be like I don't remember and that crazy neighbor or, it's more like it's not like they're not. What do you call it? They're not like they're telling you rather than showing you. Isn't that supposed to be like a thing? Like you're not supposed to do exposition.
Yes, exactly. But I think it's kind of fun to see something that's of an older time and just like, okay, wow, I guess we're participating in it. And of course, the movie itself is so magical. It's like fascinating to see like how could you even describe this film?
And even the idea that you shouldn't have exposition in your trailer. I mean, if you go beyond that with this movie, you give away a lot. Like Dustin said, that kind of magic of the film and what happens. I mean, the visual aspect of this movie is just stunning. And I think that would be kind of a surprise ruined if it was featured in the trailer.
However, I think all of us watching it had a moment of just like, oh, that's an interesting trailer. I feel like I haven't seen anything, like that. So
yeah, it was cool. I mean, I remember, I always really liked the Holy Mountain movie. Trailer. Have you ever seen that trailer?
Oh my gosh, dude! Yeah,
I thought it was funny because they sort of announced that it's a movie beyond criticism, which is such like a funny thing to tell the audience.
We know what you're gonna say. Yeah. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but dude, that movie's just totally out of its mind, man. That movie's wild. You need a seatbelt for that movie. Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can talk about that more. But and so and I think there's a relationship between Cocteau and Jodorowsky that that appealed to me. Or that maybe kind of got me to be attracted to both of them as filmmakers.
Think
Well, and that's maybe a good segue for us. So essentially, I was kind of curious what everyone's first time viewing these films or how you became interested. Speaking for myself, I've seen a lot of these films by Kenneth Anger, which we have done a previous show on, and these different kind of experimental filmmakers that just took such a huge influence from Cocteau. So I was assuming that the film was going to take on some kind of like esoteric, kind of spooky, kind of thing. But I was really surprised at the level of magic that existed that wasn't necessarily based on the occult or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because there's things that it would remind you of like right off the bat. Like one of them is even like the Disney version of Jack and the Beanstalk when he goes up into the like the castle.
Yes.
When Mickey goes in the castle and there's that singing harp and stuff. I feel like that kind of thing evokes this feeling. It has like the kind of gloomy feeling of almost like some of the sets are almost like you're going into like the vampire Dracula Wolfman kind of thing from the smoky woods at night, and then there's this sort of like beautiful like beast costume, which is sort of like I don't know, like I don't even really know what I compare it to. I was going to say Muppets, but it's not really that.
I mean, it kind of looks like Fozzie Bear, maybe, or
yeah. Apparently, I saw there actually is a real historical, basis for the character of the Beast. Apparently, like it's sort of there was a aristocratic, or somebody in a court, at least, like an aristocratic court who had that, whatever it is, like I don't know if you call it a disease, where you have like hair all over your face. It's sort of like the traditional circus. I think there was like, people were featured in circus shows because they had hair all over their face.
Yeah, I like Maury in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah. What do they call? I don't know what they call that. But anyways, somebody who had this condition was in an aristocratic court and got married in it, and there's like apparently a painting of that person. So it's like, and apparently I think that is the historical basis for the story.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's fascinating, man. You didn't give yourself enough credit. You know a lot about this.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll find out. I'll excavate what I know over the course of this conversation.
Yes.
So I was going to say, so that movie, so there's all kinds of things that are neat about it. But when I think about when I first heard about this movie, and in a way that how it influenced me is, I was driving in a car with my friend Elise, who programs the Roxy Cinema in New York, which is it's like a movie theater that's under the Roxy Hotel in Tribeca. Anyways, this is before this. This is like 10 years ago or something. We're driving in a car, and she mentions that there exists this movie. Like, have I ever seen it? It's Cocteau directed it. He made his own Beauty and the Beast. I don't even know if she said Cocteau. She said there exists a Beauty and the Beast, and the director made like handmade. It was kind of. So it was like a completely handmade version of it. From like whatever the 40s, and so that I have to see it because it's like the most magical film, and it's like this sort of completely handmade world that he had, done for this fairy tale, and that stuck in my head. Just that recommendation, you know what I mean? And
yes,
so like already like the movie was like in my mind like this sort of magical handmade thing that was like and I didn't even see it for a while. I think the first thing I saw from Cocteau was Orpheus, like the Orphic trilogy, where he retells the story of Orpheus as I don't know, for people who don't know, it's like Orpheus is a sort of musician who goes to the underworld to save his true love, who's under there. I can't remember if she died, but she's down there, and then and he screws it up at the last minute by looking back. And it's kind of like the same story as in Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot, where he looks back and she disappears.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the Bible she turns into a pillar of salt. But it's the same kind of trope. But like, anyways, yeah. So the fact is that it got into my head that Cocteau takes fairy tales and he adapts them into like something that is completely his own universe. And what I like about this Beauty and the Beast is it, as much as it exists in a fairy tale world and it has those kind of costumes, it's actually kind of like a mashup of like that of kind of like bohemian French looks along with fairy tale looks is sort of like right? You don't get the sense that it takes place in a particular time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the fact that it's from 1946, this movie, there's really no evidence of the fact that it's from 1946 other than the fact that it's black and white.
Yeah, it's black and white, and you can tell, but it's almost just like kind of like, it looks like he just took any idea that he maybe had and like built a universe, around it. And actually the main thing it has in common is that it bears like the romantic energy of like a fairy tale. Maybe in the same way that people like a movie like Princess Bride does. You know what I mean? Which is also a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a Princess Bride tattoo.
You do? I didn't know. Oh, we love Princess Bride. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great movie. And, Mel Brooks is like that too for me. I mean, a lot of the Mel Brooks movies that really, influenced me. Well, I don't know. It's funny. It's because the thing is, like, I really like making movies, but I'm not like a huge movie fan. Like, I mean, like, I like movies, like maybe a little bit less than an average person, but like, but I like to make them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, and there's been a few people along the way that have really attracted me, and like, I got really into them. And definitely, Jodorowsky's one and Cocteau's one, and Mel Brooks, and yeah. I mean, I don't know.
There are men in shades just standing around these bleeding stars. The paradox, let the eyes of God be our guide to find a gentle path. There's a broken record playing a tune to the floating waves of the antennas, and you were just a little guy, and I was little too.
Speaking of those, I mean, just those influences, what part of the creative process specifically appeals to you? Is it just seeing some movies that really do catch your attention that you kind of want to recreate a little bit of that magic?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, like, yeah, because I like, I mean, a little bit of that. And I think it's just honestly that I have like really strong visual images in my head, and like I have a lot of dialogue going on, and I really want to say it, and I have characters that are sort of talking to me, and like, or, I think that I want to basically find these different mechanisms for what's going on, like in my, interior world, kind of almost like I don't know if you would call them like the ego or the id or something, the kind of apparatuses like that are kind of going around like clockwork. And I'm sort of end up giving them all a voice and having them like negotiate something. And in this case, when I'm with the Aladdin movie, like I was trying to make them work out the myth of Aladdin. And so I think all the characters are just basically me, and they're all just trying to get through the myth of Aladdin, and I describe my own meaning to like what the genie is. In this case, I made the genie like a 3D printer, and Aladdin I cast as myself. But when Cocteau did Orpheus, I think he had done Orpheus as a folk singer, and I remember that kind of affected me at the time. I like the idea of movies about where the singer is the hero. I think that's funny. Maybe just because like as an indie rock singer, I think it's actually, the more indie rock the singer is, I think it's more funny, I guess.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah. Well, and obviously there's some similarities between your graphic novel, which we'll get to eventually with that. But even in that, like, you would kind of admittedly saying that, you're not necessarily, quote unquote, a movie person, and whatever that means, and that comes with certain ideas. I can see how a movie like Beauty and the Beast, or you had brought up The Holy Mountain, those are movies where I would say a lot of people would say those movies aren't necessarily for me. So I could imagine, like, right. That would speak to the way that your mind works, the way it's seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of found out about sort of outsider film, and that like, got me into being like, oh, well, maybe it's for me, movies. I don't know. I mean, or, cause it's funny because the other movies I'm watching before that are like Home Alone or something, you know what I mean? Like, or I'm not really, the movies are like, just movies I watched when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, and even like something like The Wrong Ferrari, even some of your acting choices or the way that the characters talk to each other, like they kind of talk to each other like Saved by the Bell or something.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Hey, I'm Greenster, the folk singer, Casanova to the mentally ill.
And then that's a huge influence for me. It's just sitcoms and Marx Brothers movies, things like that, like, or just stuff I saw when I was younger. I mean, some of the scenes in Wrong Ferrari are like really bad attempts to do a Marx Brothers type thing. But at the same time, it's like, for me, a lot of it's about the dialogue and the writing. And, a lot of my process with making films and these types of things starts with just having a lot of writing that I want to show people, like, all these trains of thought. And, for me, it's almost like an excuse to make an audience sort of listen to an epic poem. And then, it's almost like through making a movie, I can somehow have people pay attention to, like, what would otherwise be like a 100-page epic poem I was writing.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, like, it's, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe on that same line of thought, maybe this would be a good point for you to kind of describe a little bit of how would you describe your writing style?
It's kind of like I have kind of like different kinds of things. I have one version of writing where I walk around with like a notebook or my phone, and I just walk around the city and I just type everything that's in my head. And I do that, whenever I take a walk, which is a lot, especially during the summer. I'll walk 10 miles or something, right? I'll write a bunch of pages, I'll just sit at my computer and I'll type for 2 hours. I'll just like put my phone in like a drawer and just type for 2 hours. And I try to do that often. Sometimes I do like stoned writing where I just get really stoned, which sounds kind of like, like everyone else, but I actually kind of like I have kind of like a routine with it. Kind of, I'll take like a hit every like 15 minutes for like a 2 hour period.
This is concise.
Yeah, and I'll just write, and I'll progressively get more and more stoned. And then, but it's, a lot of times I'll get my best lines, and then I don't even look at it until the next day, and then I'll just, I'll just see if I want to keep any of those lines, like, or with the Wrong Ferrari, I was doing that in ketamine. Like, a lot of the Wrong Ferrari was written. I found I could write on my phone and using the notepads feature, like when I was on ketamine, and it was like, kind of like it was kind of putting me in a meditative state, and I was able to a lot of things I get interested in is like, for me it's like a hobby to write, so I just look for situations I can put myself in where I might shake some writing out of myself,
Well, and for the three of us kind of sitting here, it makes sense, like obviously you're primarily known as, well, I don't even know if that's fair to say now. I feel like your art has expanded so much in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is anymore. But I was going to say though that, that as far as Cocteau goes, and this is something that I think with Jodorowsky is, Cocteau is a really great example of a like they call, there's sort of a trope. I don't want to use the word trope. It's like some word of the day. Okay, so yeah, there's sort of a concept with Cocteau that he's a complete artist, or total artist. I'm not saying that anyone can be a total artist. It's just an ideal to strive for. Someone that like Cocteau. That for people that don't know, Cocteau started as I think he was a poet, and he wrote a novel which I read called. I don't speak French, but it was called like Les Enfants Terribles, something like, it means like, it's kind of, that's a common expression. But he might have coined it. I don't think so, but let's just pretend that he did.
Okay.
There's a novel that he wrote called Les Enfants Terribles, and it's about three naughty high schoolers. But I think that it's kind of,
have you seen that film, by the way, Adam?
The Dreamers. Have you seen that?
Oh wait, she asked, have you seen the movie?
Oh,
what was it?
Enfants Terribles.
Oh, okay. No, is there a Cocteau movie or is?
Well, actually, someone else directed. I don't have that information in front of me, but it was the script essentially that Cocteau wrote, right?
Yeah. It was based on his novel. I think he even did the voice-over like narration on it.
Yeah, and also the handwriting, the cursive, which we also find parallels in your work in terms of.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have to watch that because when I was reading that book, I thought that The Dreamers was based on it.
Oh,
which
interesting.
Was that, it seemed like similar. It was kind of like that vibe. Because it was like these three kids that sort of egg each other into this sort of chaotic, decadent universe that they create.
We watched
together.
The movie this summer. Me and Hannah watched it, and we were just like, we were blown away. It doesn't have quite the same amount of like magical quality that Orpheus or Beauty and the Beast has, but there's elements of it when it comes in, and the story itself is just so fascinating. The whole time you're just like, yeah. Well, I mean, if you're familiar with the story, I'm sure it's the exact same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I read it a long time ago on tour, but I did think it was cool. And like, I'm trying to think, so there's that. Okay. So basically, like he so he wrote books, he wrote poems, he directed this movie, many movies. He directed like a thing called the Orphic Trilogy, right? Which is 3 movies about Orpheus, one of which he starred in. He did this Beauty and the Beast, which is like considered to be a cinematic masterpiece, right? And then,
yes.
But then also what's funny, okay, so get this. I toured with a French band called Coming Soon when I did the Aladdin tour, which, okay, I'll talk about later, but I did a concert tour for the Aladdin project. And, so I had a French band and I asked one of the dudes in the band about Cocteau. And he said, honestly, in France, if you ask me what he's really known for the most, I would say it is drawing.
Wow.
That's fascinating. So I thought that's like, yeah. So, I mean, so if you can imagine with all that in the end, the drawing actually is one of the major or most major parts of the guy to people.
Well, question for you then, if you don't mind my quick interruption here. When we talk about like the idea of a complete artist, you're obviously someone, like I mentioned, you do film and art and music. Do you feel like you've been equally accepted in all of those arenas, or is there one where you feel like people want you to be?
I don't know. I mean, obviously all this stuff is sort of an ideal because, no one's like a complete artist. No one's a total artist. I mean, it's just something to try to be, and like I was joking with, somebody because I've been doing some interviews lately because I put out, this album in, the comic book. And, I feel like if you have this sort of aspiration to become a complete artist, it's almost like as if you go to like the top of a mountain and there's a sacred like monastery. And there's some monk guarding it, and they say, you want to be a complete artist, can you draw? Can you sing? Can you write music? Can you build sculpture? Can you, embody emotion? Can you, I don't even know, so there's all these things that you're trying to do to try to navigate to become like basically like to try to be someone that would attempt to make a universe up. That you're sort of, trying to guide people's emotions through. But I don't know. And that's kind of like a dream. I think there's a Wagnerian, or I think a lot of the discussion about it started with Wagner because apparently he made when he made the Isolde opera, he was sort of obsessive about designing every element of it, from the costumes to the, obviously to the music and to the motifs that the characters, each motif was like, musical motif was attached to a character. And he had this, I think he maybe even designed the set, the set pieces. And
yeah, sure.
It was he saw opera as his opportunity to make a complete artwork. And there's a German phrase for it that I don't remember, but it starts with a G, and I'm not going to butcher it. But anyways, you look it up. It means total artwork. And so, then I think when movies came around, people thought, maybe movies can be the total artwork.
Yes.
Now for me, obviously seeing Beauty and the Beast was one of the steps on the way towards wanting to do that myself. As well as the fact that it has the commonality of like telling a myth. That was something I was interested in because I like the idea of myths. And a friend of mine said that he feels that humans are myth-based creatures, which I think is like a kind of eloquent way to put it. But I definitely feel that way. And it's like you can't, as much as people are like the hero of their own story, they're also playing out myths constantly. So, if you find one, it doesn't really matter which one it is, just go with that because, you can, if you're thinking of it, you're living it.
Yes.
But I mean, like, but all I was going to say is that, so that was one step. Also, seeing the work of Harry Smith was big for me. Like, I don't know if you like him, but he's sort of he was a sort of total artist. He made a movie called Heaven and Earth Magic that I saw probably before I saw any of these movies. I think the original print is stored at the Anthology Archives in New York, but it's sort of a amazing animated movie that he did with cutouts. But it's super psychedelic, and I think he did the soundtrack. He did everything. He also he curated the American Anthology of Folk Music, which
that's really cool.
He had his hands in a lot of different things. Apparently, he spoke all these different languages, and he was an expert in string figures, and he had the largest collection of paper airplanes, and he knew how to identify people from 5 words in every accent of their region. So he had a diverse group of interests, and one of them was filmmaking, and so anyways, he was sort of my introduction to these types of sort of people that explore lots of different areas and have no specialty. And I find that to be inspiring. I kind of have gravitated towards that over the years because I don't know why, but Burroughs was also another thing for me. William S. Burroughs, who in the Interzone books, just because when I read Burroughs, I just thought it almost seemed like it should be illegal to write it, or it felt like it, which was an amazing feeling to read something and feel how is this written in the 50s? How is this written? I don't know why I felt this sort of people would be shocked about this even now to read this.
Totally. Well, and going back to Cocteau for a moment, when he made, so you're talking about this idea of the total artist. Does anyone have the figures of everything that Cocteau made? Didn't he create ballet, poetry? You're talking about drawing. Right. He made screenplays. He did all of these things. Once it came time for him to actually create his own film for the first time, all the people at the time were like, dude, you have no business doing this.
Right.
So it's interesting to think he was someone that valued kind of this total artist aesthetic, but the critics of the time were just you absolutely shouldn't make this. And of course, at the time,
you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and at the time, Beauty and the Beast had a lot of historical reference, or there was a lot of responsibility because it was made
1740-ish. Is when the original story was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point. So the fairy tale itself is made in kind of turbulent times, but the film is made right after the heels of the end of World War II, essentially. So in France at the time, it was this idea of Cocteau. And of course, as Hannah says, I'm editorializing this, but Cocteau, we need you to, we need this movie to be a big success. Yeah, no one said this
directly.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
wow.
in my movie of this, in my mind, this is how it worked.
Right, okay. It's drunk history.
Yes. Yeah, my drunk history, yeah. Anyway, so it was with that kind of responsibility, but Cocteau kind of explained to all the critics at the time, the responsibility that I feel is for my own artistic pursuit. So the beginning of that film, Adam, do you remember how that movie starts?
Let me think.
The credits, the opening credits.
Yeah. It actually starts with Cocteau's voice, right?
Yeah, it's Cocteau's voice, and specifically with him, what is it, Hannah? Drawing. He's writing on a chalkboard. It takes place in a classroom setting.
Right. Yes.
And then there's kind of a somewhat famous moment where he kind of starts talking about the idea of childhood and what it means to be a kind of creative person and kind of identify with the feelings of what it means to be, a child. But as the viewer, you think he's talking to you or maybe a child that could possibly be watching it, but he's actually referring to the critics seeing it.
Well, because people wanted a statement on war and culture and something kind of heavy, but he just wanted to make a fairy tale.
Yeah.
A really beautiful fairy tale.
And it's amazing because, also, this is only Cocteau's second film. Can you imagine making this as your second? Well, you made Aladdin for your second film, so you know exactly what that feels like. Yeah.
Something died for all time when I saw you conspiring to never lift a finger.
Well, it's funny how going and doing things like that, you just kind of almost if you knew what you do now, you wouldn't even be so confident doing it. It's part of it is not knowing what for people who didn't know about the Aladdin thing, it was basically a movie made where all the sets are made of paper mache. So it's it looks like you're in a cartoon because we had to build like 30 full-size rooms out of paper mache and cardboard.
We were just watching it again. I mean, I don't know how many times we've seen actually Aladdin, but watching it again last night, getting ready, we actually had the feeling amongst us of like, how many set pieces are there?
And now we know.
Yeah. I think there was about 500. I mean, the funniest thing is there was extra things built, because I think at some point people were like, oh, it's a kitchen, what do we got? Do we have like forks, knives, like, I remember at one point, Natasha's character, Natasha Leon, who plays the mom, she said, I feel like my character would have her car keys in her hand when she came in. And we were like, did somebody make car keys? And someone was like, I did. She had car keys that wasn't even in the script, but just like, there was just stuff built. I think maybe 500 objects. And in a way, it became kind of like, it just reminded me of like almost in ancient Egypt where they would bury like a pharaoh with all the stuff they would need in the afterlife. In a way, like the paper mache universe was like this sort of other dimension, and we had to make one of everything for it. Including multiple cars, multiple houses, multiple, and it was funny. And it all took place in this warehouse, which was a very fun and hot, sweaty place to be. But, and it took place the build was about 4 months, and I think the shooting was like 2.5 months. So we were in this warehouse for, half a year.
Well, and maybe, yeah, we're going to say something.
It feels fitting for the film that you were just like making all this stuff, making random things, because in the movie, people are 3D printing just whatever they want, whatever they can think of.
Yeah, whatever they want. And that's the thing about it is that, in order to make, like, part of Aladdin is that Aladdin has a genie, but, as the person who's making Aladdin, I have to become the genie to make all the stuff that Aladdin has.
That's funny to think, yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, so there's always a genie behind anyone who's making Aladdin. But like, I was going to say that, in a way, like also, the idea is that, you pretty much want to have the feeling that, that they're printing out or that somebody's wishing for too much stuff. That's like an important thing about Aladdin is you want to feel like the huge, the immensity of what you could get. So to do that, you have to make a lot of extra stuff that's just for like one shot.
Right. Well, and of course, we're talking about a point now where you had essentially already made a movie previously with the wrong.
Also, not even to give the impression that I made all this stuff. I had a bunch of people that helped me to make it. I mean, but I did paint. I painted all the objects by hand to make them look like they were my art.
That's awesome.
But the thing is that a lot of this stuff is I like how we're just connecting different artists. But Jean Dubuffet, who I originally he's I don't know if people know him. He is a sculptor and a painter. And I was in France at one point when I was on tour, and I went into a room in a museum. I think it was in the Pompidou, and it was this sort of immersive cave, and it was just sort of like done with these black lines, like. And it looked like, I think it was maybe made out of paper mache, but it looked like it was a drawing. Like it was the first time that I'd ever realized that you can make a sculpture that looks like a drawing and that you can sort of be inside of it in 3D space. And so then from then on, like I guess I sort of had this sort of idea that I would like enjoy to make a movie that existed inside of my drawings. And the paper mache cardboard universe gave me the chance to do that, by basically having a huge paintbrush that was the biggest size I could find, and then just drawing black lines on top of the sculpture so that it could people could just sort of be inside my drawings like they were inside of a cartoon. And there was a show on Nickelodeon I saw when I was a kid. It was like where kids would go into a video game.
Oh yeah,
that's always been. That. Yeah, that's always just stuck in my head. Like I remember they were just in front of a green screen, but the visual was striking.
Well, and it seems like nostalgia is something that plays a big part into a lot of your art. So will you speak to that a little bit? Why is it that there's all of these images from all of our various childhoods coming out in your art?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it is like they sort of, a lot of things like Mario and I don't even know, like, a lot of these cartoon characters like that have been sort of deconstructed. Big Bird. things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What's because it seems like the three major ones. What is it? It's Garfield's ear.
Garfield, Big
Elmo.
Bird, Elmo. Yeah, and it's sort of grown out a little bit over the years, but yeah, it's like Garfield's cheek, Garfield's ear, Big Bird's eye, Big Bird's mouth. Can
you tell us a little bit why you chose those characters to represent so much of your myth, I guess? Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of it does have its origins in my own drug trips and stuff. I mean, like I remember I took the drug salvia, which is kind of a potent hallucinogen that for some reason was or is legal here, like in New York. Like I think we just got it at a head shop, It's like somebody, it's the weirdest thing because it's like, I think it's just one of the guys, a musician was telling me about this drug, and he said, I smoked it and I felt like I was a piece of paper, you know what I mean? Like, and, things that just sounded so wild. And so I needed to know what this drug was. And, my friends had tried it. So I think we got some on St. Mark's Place. We went back to the apartment. And wow, I mean, it felt like I died. Like it felt like, it wasn't even like I was familiar with the feeling of dying, obviously. It's just that it was so displacing that there was no other way I could really think about it other than like it was sort of like a post-mortem experience. Like it felt like the way it tasted like an ancient Egyptian mummy. Like it and
that's good.
You know what I mean? And I just instantly was like in some kind of Tinker Toy reality where I felt like I was. Yeah, and the colors were so bright, and it was so disorienting, and and it was very cartoony in a way. And I remember kind of waking up from that, and I think it was very yellow. And the first thing I did was paint this Big Bird yellow painting, and it just was just based on like a something that I saw, but that became sort of the basis for whatever for some direction I was going in my own painting.
I love them so. I like drugs. I like to linger in the alleyway. I like drugs. I like to hold them for a friend. And everything's gone and my finger is longer. I never want to come down again. I like to do drugs. I like to have drugs. I like to hold a cigarette full of grass in my hand until one morning, that ugly morning, when the brat got stabbed and the cat got drunk. Oh, my baby couldn't shave me that day.
So was it the first time you did salvia was Big Bird, and then the second time was Elmo?
Yeah, I started. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I started to just, I started to deconstruct the Big Bird thing, and I kind of was deconstructing the facial features, and then eventually started kind of squaring them off and cubing them, and I got kind of into this sort of neoplasticism that Mondrian was doing, where you kind of, reduce things down to their bare essentials, and so I was sort of looking for the most simplistic way that I could draw Big Bird's eye, as a in a sort of cubic way, and I came up with this sort of symbol that was a rectangle with divided into three parts: one pink, one blue, and one white, with a slash down the bottom that was for the eyeball, and that just became this sort of reduction. Anyways, yeah. So a lot of these things I can't exactly remember how they all connect, but that I just started realizing that these became building blocks that I could use in my own world creation.
Yeah.
So now it just gave me these sort of encoded cubic reductions. Like I was almost saying they're almost like cartoon character crack, because isn't crack like a distilled like, it's like when you take cocaine and you like crystallize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are just like crystallized cartoon character facial features. But they became building blocks, and the cool thing about using them to build, if you're trying to build a world, is that you just sort of use them, and you can kind of use them for like architecture or for costume or for anything. And I think that the nice thing about it is I felt like they carried the weight of the sentimental associations that maybe I or other people have for them, without sort of being them. They just sort of carried I think they reminded people of something that they like.
Yeah, I totally agree
which is like a nice place to start when you have a brick. Like, do you want a brick that just looks like a brick, or do you want a brick that reminds somebody of something they like? I mean, I don't know. So that sort of was the tools I used to build the world.
And talking about building the world and like these like kind of literal building blocks, something that I'd been wondering when I watched Wrong Ferrari and Aladdin and then reading War in Paradise, is all of this supposed to be the same singular universe? Because there are ties to everything. Like Zintendo was always there, and like baseball diamonds and being actual diamonds, and there are like touchstones that are a part of everything. Is this supposed to be just like a continuous shared world, or is it just kind of like a soft reboot, pulling whatever you want to keep reusing?
Yeah, it's kind of like there's thematically things that are the same, and it's supposed to sort of take place in the same world. It's called regular world, and I like to keep it in that world, but the thing is that there's always been a sort of amorphous quality to it, because you know what I mean? I feel like there's sort of myths that run through it, but they're kind of half remembered. Like, I feel like Bagelheart has appeared in a bunch of different things I've done.
Yes.
But Bagelheart can be like he could be like a Native American chief, or he can be like, like a rabbi, or, like he can be like, just, I feel like maybe almost grafted onto my own association as sort of a Jewish guy, like that, almost like he's like my Yoda or something. Like, I can just at any moment he can become, and like he's like my big brother. He can like give me like a noogie, and like,
yeah, sure.
So Bagelheart became like sort of like a sage. He's almost like a spirit that exists in my own universe. But he keeps on getting reincarnated in different forms, and I don't necessarily have like that much of a continuity. I mean, but for example, the Mario in my world is sort of like the Jesus of Nintendo, and the Mario is sort of like, I mean, it was sort of an idea I had about, if you were thousands of years in the future and people, had been, whatever, there's been so much disinformation already. Like, can you imagine in even like 100 years from now or 200 years from now with, the way that the media works, like if people would not remember or not be able to discern whether or not Mario was originally a plumber in Brooklyn or was an avatar.
Turbo Marco, which I love that name.
Turbo Marco is mine. So basically it's just sort of like about like, could there be a, if there was like the first character that was in like a Second Life reality that was a video game universe that people have since populated throughout in their virtual reality way. Maybe Mario is like the first avatar of man. You know what I mean? And like, and it's hard to know if he was real or not. Even though, I'm sitting here in Brooklyn right now feeling that I can tell you with confidence that I remember when the game came out and that Mario was fictional and strangely Japanese, made by a Japanese playing card company. I don't know. Also just the idea that, with a lot of these characters that you dream about them. I mean, like, I remember, for example, this is a true story, is that when I first had my, I had a dream when I was really young. And I in my dream, I won Super Mario Brothers, and I went to, and I got to meet the princess. And when I met the princess, I had an orgasm.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember waking up completely ashamed, like completely freaked out. You know what I mean? Because like I didn't even know what was going on, and
yeah.
But anyways, I'm just saying, like in that sense, like I feel like these characters sort of take over your mind when you're younger, and they're in your dreams and they're part of your consciousness. So like, I feel like in that way, like I'm able to sort of like, as an adult, like have the freedom to sort of run with them and, have them sort of act out by proxy, like, my adult emotions.
Well, even the characters of your creation, I think it's interesting, like you're talking about Bagelheart. It's not like in the world of your art, it's not like Greenster and Aladdin are ever going to meet each other, but we talked about the Bagelheart concept recently, and I can't remember specifically how that word or character shows up in different films, but I had that certain feeling about that character and what he means, like in terms of like a representing a certain figure, like you mentioned.
Yeah, Bagel Heart's like a lifeline for me for, in some kind of way. I don't know. And like, even the Miss President character, is sort of about, finding yourself, like, at this kind of like, at this, like, like service of like a female creative genius or something, like, I don't know, so it's almost like, you could look at it as even like getting married, like, I mean, I don't know, I got married to my wife, Yasmin, she's the smartest person I've ever met.
This world could be a paradise, a 3D model, where you summon all these loves of mine who can actually sing. I needed someone to trust, 'cause everybody should give themselves up when never endings begin, and pregnant voices say turn yourself in. It was the engine of a paradise.
Well, and on that same idea, I understand that throughout this film, you guys had a big collaboration that kind of continues to this day, right? A creative collaboration.
Absolutely. Yes has been sort of helping me to, in lots of ways, making these things since we met. And in Aladdin, she produced it with me, and she helped me to edit that script. And so same for my movie my comic War in Paradise, which just came out. By the way, anyone who wants to read War in Paradise, you can get a copy, like a physical copy, from Pioneer Works, which is like pioneerworks.org, but you can also download a free PDF of the comic from my website, which is AdamGreen.info. So anyone that wants to can just go on there right now, and there's like a Dropbox, and you can just download the comic and read it if you want.
Which, we're going to link to that when we post this, and I super appreciate you doing that, because I think that art should be shareable in as many ways as possible.
Yeah.
But I really recommend that people actually buy it, because I'm holding a copy right now, and it looks beautiful.
It's been really good. They did a great job printing it, but it's actually been really cool because it hasn't seemed to have any like crossover effect. Like the publisher has been super happy with they've sold most of their copies already.
Oh,
and,
that's great.
And then the as far as the online download, I figure that's just people who, for whatever reason, want to read the download. I don't think that they're the people that were going to buy the book anyway. So, or maybe both.
Yeah. All of Adam's stuff is online in terms of being able to see. If you're interested in seeing The Wrong Ferrari or Aladdin, you put both those up on YouTube.
Or if you're just really in the weeds when we say things like Bagel Heart and Greenster, just like take a little break, watch the movies, and maybe come back and revisit. Man.
Yeah, they're all on there. Like, and you could pretty much get a comprehensive like way to get all of them by going to AdamGreen.info, which would just lead you to watch any of them on YouTube or download any of them. So I was going to say that, so just as far as the comic book, Yasmin, that she had helped me to edit it. She helped me to write the storyline of it. We just work together in a lot of ways. I mean, when we come home, we have these discussions and they become these projects. And, I'm really focused a lot on writing dialogue. That's kind of, I think, my favorite thing to do. I could just do that all day. I don't even need a plot. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of times when it comes to actually making a story, that's the kind of thing that we do together. I mean, The Wrong Ferrari has a very, very loose narrative. Like, if you, that's my own doing. You know what I mean? Like, it has a narrative that's very abstract. And, so ever since then, it's been moving towards more like, can we, take the dialogue that I make, which is, coming from all places, and can we sort of, place it inside of the context of a story that has, something to do with what it's all about anyway, which has been, rewarding, as an artistic collaboration and just fun.
Hello. My name is Yasmin Green, Director of Research and Development at Jigsaw, which is a technology incubator inside of Alphabet. And I'm here to talk to you today about fake news. When I started my career in tech over a decade ago, things looked really different. So So Google didn't own YouTube or sites or Blogger or Android, but today people are their own publishing platforms and TV stations. Back then, search was your window to the web. If it didn't rank high on the search page results, you probably wouldn't find out about it. Fast forward a decade, and most of us get a lot of our news from social networks. And there's been this explosion in connectivity, which is amazing. It's brought people online from different parts of the world. And the next billion people who are coming online look really different from the first billion. The next billion are not coming online in Silicon Valley or central London or even Austin, Texas. They're coming online in parts of the world where rule of law is weak, human rights aren't protected, and they are living a physical reality which they will bring with them online. So our job at Jigsaw is to design technology to make the world safer, and to think a lot about the next billion people who are coming online. We want to keep people safer from attacks on free speech, from attacks on harassment, from attacks like violent extremism, and justice and injustice and corruption.
Well, talking about War in Paradise, with your wife in particular, you might have to clarify for us and anybody else who's listening, but she works with technology as it relates to terrorism and am I speaking of that correctly?
Yasmin. So my wife's Yasmin Green, and she works she actually helped to start the group Jigsaw, which was originally under the umbrella of Google, but now is under the umbrella of Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. So she's a technologist, and she works kind of in the geopolitical field, doing all kinds of projects that try to help people kind of protect people who are using the internet. A lot of times in countries where there are sort of firewalls as well as she it works on various projects about trying to dissuade people from joining up with terrorist groups or just a variety of different things that have to do with the internet and the way that it works to sort of recruit people and inflame them and have all kinds of problems happen.
Which, it's really, at least Dustin and I, we've talked about this. We saw some parallels where your work seems to increasingly focus on both embracing technology and kind of the dangers of doing that. So do you think those two have some kind of connection here? Maybe your influence from Yasmin or just your own thoughts on technology?
Well, it's funny because I'm not a complete Luddite. As we were talking about, when I got an iPhone, the first thing I did with it was basically make a feature film. I'm not against using technology to do something that I think is cool, and to do artwork with it. But obviously I feel like I'm kind of hypnotized by it, and I kind of want to get away from it as much as I can. It doesn't seem like, the kind of social media stuff particularly makes people happy. And I think that's well acknowledged at this point. I don't know. I try to keep an open mind about what it could do that is good. And there's just kind of an inevitability I feel about, the advancement of AI and the kind of way that it will algorithm and predict and control people. And, I'm not, but at the same time, it's when I look at it from my own life and my own, just for what I have in my life, I do try to kind of stay away from a lot of it. But I'm not saying that would work for everyone. So
it must be fascinating to sit at your guys' dinner table and listen to the two of you guys talk.
It's funny. A lot of it, it can go in a lot of different directions.
I said I'm gonna freeze my love while I'm diving down for the sun.
But the sun has become a cliff, and that's 1/5 of what's been going on. I'll just freeze my love because technology has changed me.
It's pretty fun to have conversations together.
Well, talk to us a little bit about what it was like to actually create the story, which is just a fabulous story. One thing that I love about the graphic novel, and we kind of briefly talked about this before, I think one thing in ingesting your art is understanding that it's very much like a verbal kind of experience. And when you listen to the music, the lyrics go by so fast, and you use a lot of grotesque and humorous imagery in your songwriting style, which, goes on to the films and the dialogue. But one thing that's nice about the graphic novel is you have an opportunity to actually read kind of the brilliant things that you're saying.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, like my wife was saying that like this is like the one chance that people would, normally have to actually read the line again, because a lot of it, like I'll try to have, 20 lines in a row that are like the kind of thing that if you said, somebody would probably have to stop and think about it, or, they would want to, but I'll have them all play in the same scenes in a way that like, I think a lot of people, when they first see it, they'll be like, this dude doesn't make any fucking sense. And like, he's not even trying to make any sense.
Which seems like a misconception.
I remember like I did a Q&A in Aladdin in Italy. And the audience member asked me like basically like, did I just write a bunch of like complete, like is the movie just completely random? Like does it have any, like he didn't understand that it was like he didn't even understand that like it had been thought about to the degree that it had. But it doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's the point is that this is cool because you can actually like see how the scenes are connected and how the lines have to do with what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think that the thing is that also, I think like I'm kind of like a symbolist as an artist. Like that's kind of like maybe the essence of what I'm doing is I get into certain symbols, and and it doesn't matter if it's like a word that I reuse throughout my whole career, but a lot of times I'm still using the same words that I started with, and I'm just kind of modulating them and just checking them out from different angles and seeing like, I basically want to try to make myself feel like I'm going into another dimension when I'm thinking of a line, and it's kind of like I'm trying to build a bridge so that I can get something that's on the other end of the bridge, and then I pull it back and look at it and see if I can like include it in something I'm doing. But the idea is like hopefully that by taking all these little things that I'm getting from across the bridge and putting them into the screenplay, that I'm able to sort of like do some sort of surgery on who's watching the thing, that they are able to like feel like they're getting glimpses into like maybe like an unhypnotized state or something.
Yeah.
And that, that's my hope is honestly just to make people feel like they're not hypnotized. And in a way that for me, what I actually hope is that it's relaxing. And people have told me that when I remember we did that for them, they like watched The Wrong Ferrari to feel relaxed, which is funny, but I think that in a way, like, if you actually just sit back and you just like trust that it actually is something that is really thought about a lot, then you can just sort of relax and be like, oh, okay, this is just like somebody's trying to like show me, the way that they see the world.
Well, and for me watching it, Hannah laughed at my notes in terms of writing down some of my questions, but one of them that I had was, why does The Wrong Ferrari make me feel so sad? I get like a deep like sadness from watching that film, and in a nice way, actually, though.
Yeah, The Wrong Ferrari is, it's kind of an unrequited love story, and it's just the thing is that The Wrong Ferrari is weird because because of the amount of drugs that were done in it, and it's sort of like a psychedelic movie. It's sort of it was my attempt to kind of show people what a ketamine experience is. And it's also kind of, I'm trying to think, I was getting really into at the time like those Fassbinder movies, especially, have you ever seen the movie Corel?
No. It's funny, he just came up recently, so yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a neat movie. If you want to show it sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, like liked the narration in it, and that was kind of inspiration. I was also watching these Robert Downey Sr. movies, like Putney
we're
Swope.
huge fans of that. We've screened Putney Swope, and your films totally remind us of that.
We made those the humor and how the rhythm of everything.
That Weird Al movie, UHF, was big for me. I feel like UHF is kind of prophetic because the UHF network is kind of just YouTube.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
but you know, like all that stuff. But like yeah. So for some reason, the thing is about that. Okay, the reason the iPhone appealed to me because, you know, I think that, you know, you have a kind of close, intimate relationship with your phone, you know, and you can make a video really fast. Like you can just press record and all of a sudden you're doing video. And I realized on tour that, you know, for me, I had such a low interest in photography that this was like the first time that I ever felt like, oh, I can take pictures. And so when I started realizing that, you know, that I could write like a script on tour and have the band act in it, this was great because I just realized that, you know, I could use the camera, like improvisationally, and we could just, you know, I could just record whenever I wanted to, and people would not even realize that we were making a movie. And so the more that it expanded, and at first it started off like we're making UHF, like we're making, you know, my own version of Seinfeld, or I don't know what it was. But then it
Saved by the Bell, yeah.
Saved by the Bell, exactly. But it just started off like that, and then, but then what's funny is that the more commitment that you give to it, it just became funnier and funnier. Like, you know, by the end, you know, we're like renting a boat, and like we rented a Ferrari, and we're like we have like whole sets that we made, and I think that it just became like this real movie. But it was only just because of the enthusiasm that everyone was having for it. Like from the second we started shooting the movie, it just became clear that it was so fun to make it. And then when Macaulay Culkin came on the tour, which was kind of like fortuitous, just the right timing, and he came to the Teen Tech art show that I did at on the Bowery, and you know, we just had been a little bit in touch, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm going to be in Germany if you want to come by. And he came by, and you know, we had a tour bus. He was like, oh, okay, I'll just sleep on this bunk. And I showed him the iPhone movie that we'd been making, and he was like, oh, I'm in, I want to be in this. So all of a sudden, I think that his involvement to be in The Wrong Ferrari added a lot of gravity to the project, and it made everyone so excited and happy to be in this iPhone movie that it just kept on snowballing to the point where, like, you know, it was like, I don't know, it was like we're like making the best iPhone movie that we ever had ever been made.
Sounds like having him there like legitimized it.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, like it was like who wouldn't want to be in this iPhone movie now? You know, it's like you know, it's like you know, like it's yeah, it was just a kind of, it became about more of like a community and a, you know, kind of snapshot of like a world of what indie rock stuff that was happening. Like, for example, like I was playing a concert with Devendra Banhart and you know, and Deb Hines and different people that were like all kind of in scenes together, you know, that were like kind of, you know, and Alia Shawkat from Arrested Development, and different people had come into the movie, and like, so it was becoming just like a and Pete Doherty from the Libertines.
Well, that's
so
a great scene too.
It was just very like, I think no one quite had a picture of what movie it was, and even I didn't quite really understand it, but I thought I understood it, and I was like writing scenes. Once a week, I'd write a new scene and give everyone the lines, and then we like congregate in.
Now, I have something I want to ask you. So we're seeing these movies, and you just talked about how, you know, sometimes when you do these questions and answers, people just assume that you're just making this stuff up. You know, there's this whole level of the fact that you're actually writing these lines of dialogue for people to actually say. Why don't you tell us a little bit, like, what's your directing style? How do you direct these actors? You're talking about Macaulay Culkin, and, you know, what's that like?
You know, it's like it's like a little bit loose. It's not that loose. You know, I basically like, I think I want the lines to be said with like a certain level of clarity, and like, and I think one thing that is actually funny to the actors is that I really don't want them to say it any differently than I wrote it. Like, and I think that they think it's like, you know, surely, it's just like kind of like an approximation of what I want to say. But for me, like I just kind of chose the words because I see it like a poem, so I need them to say like those words. but outside of that, like I'm pretty much like, well, the thing is I've been really lucky because I'm mostly working with really, really great actors, right? So like, I just kind of trust that they'll perform it well, or that they'll, I don't know. I try not to make it like leave the realm of something that we're doing that's just fun, because like I don't want it to be like, I don't know. I feel like it's, to me, like all the movies are kind of an extension of a community. You know what I mean? So it is kind of all community theater in a way. You know what I mean? It's not, it shouldn't be like held up to a certain standard of like, whatever you want to call it, like real filmmaking. Cause I don't think it's like, I'm not like approaching it that way. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Well, and it seems like within your films, you also have actors like they are associated with the films, which we're kind of talking about now, which I mean, dude, we've got to talk about some of the amazing performances that you have in Aladdin and The Wrong Ferrari.
You know, for example, like Jack Dishel.
That's
Jack
what
Dishel,
we love him, man.
He's like a comedic genius, and he
is.
But what I was going to say though is that, okay, the thing is, okay, the way I see the characters in the movies is that I feel like that they are supposed to be like, they are spirits that are having like a conversation in a spirit world. Like they're not actually saying like what they would say as the characters. They're only speaking like the way that they're like, if all the characters fell asleep and their souls had a conversation, that's like how they'd be speaking to each other, is like how I see it. You know what I mean? Like they're all speaking in the sleeping realm to each other, not like there wouldn't make any sense for them to speak like that if they were conscious. And so there's no accuracy of authentic dialogue attempt. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
But I'm actually curious about how old plays functioned. Like, I don't really know, because you can't go back to the old times, like to understand. So you can't understand, like, you can't go back to like an old, like, you know, to hear A Midsummer Night's Dream performed in the Globe Theater and see, apparently, like, I don't know that it was really particularly highbrow. You know what I mean? That's probably like a play that people found to be just like really funny and interesting, you know, but not necessarily, you know, wildly academic, you know? So, but anyways, but I assume that, I guess I'm confused, because I assume that the way that the Midsummer Night's Dream is written is that he wrote tons of dialogue and had like whittled it down to like little fragments that were all really witty, and then had like stitched them together into that framework. But I don't really know. I couldn't find any information online about how that Shakespeare had written his like writing method, but it doesn't seem like that it seems like the individual lines are incredibly important, like more than it is to have any kind of naturalistic dialogue effort.
Yeah. Well, and once again, going back to the graphic novel, I mean, that's what's so great about War in Paradise. You get a chance to actually appreciate it.
Well, it's cool. Yeah, you know, it's fun. It's really fun to write that way. It's fun to write in a way that you're thinking.
When I checked into that hotel, I couldn't keep from making a living hell. I took off my jewelry and rented a movie. Then I tried to call you, 'cause something confused me. I went for a walk to find some blood with the blinder's eyes on my miserable mug. Breaking locks and getting shocked. No one should ever hold me up. I've been too awful to ever be thoughtful, to ever be nice. When I took off my winter...
I'm actually, you know, if anything, the whole experience of trying to do this has been made me so happy to know that people can understand to some degree stuff that you are just thinking about that you would think that they couldn't. You know, that you can, if you're just like assume the audience is on your wavelength, like you'd be surprised how much they can understand of what's inside of you. And, you know, in a way, like, I think I make a lot of this art just to find people that are in the world that might, like, you know, relate to it, you know?
Well, the way you write makes me think of, Kurt Vonnegut had the set of rules for short stories. And one of them that I think of all the time when I think of art I like, especially writing, was that, you can't open your window and make love to the world. You shouldn't write in a way that tries to be a generic and appeal to everybody, because you lose a lot of meaning. So in poetry, using very specific, sometimes visceral, but like very personal experiences can be a lot more relatable than trying to write something that appeals to a broader audience. Right. So I think what you're saying is very true. I mean, of course, that's not how people typically speak to each other, but I think, how Dustin gets sad when he watches the wrong Ferrari. It's the cool. Meaning is conveyed and the emotion is conveyed still.
Yeah, like I think a lot about just the opening dialogue, the opening intro and the closing outro of The Wrong Ferrari are both like really intense, I think as parts of a film. It's funny because the spoken word stuff or the voiceover was like all an attempt to stitch it together, like for people who are watching it to understand. And BP Fallon did a great job performing those parts. Like he's I don't know if people know about BP, but he's sort of like a legendary figure. He was the publicist for T-Rex, and amongst a million other things, like he's a singer.
Does he do the overdub at the beginning of Wrong Ferrari?
Exactly.
I love all that. Yeah.
He's just like he's like you couldn't believe all the things that he's done in his life. He added some kind of gravity to those scenes.
He's far out there now, past the planets, Earth to Adam. Getting high on head pats, he's lost in a doggy dream wherein the pet suddenly overtakes his master. But he's not a little girl anymore, and neither is she. And so he wonders, is there an organism in this universe that is not confused?
Don't treat me like I work in a stop sign factory!
Greenster, I examined your life. The only bad thing that happened to you was you.
Fuck this. Where's my mom?
I'm here, my runaway boy. Every time you ignore my arms, you deplete the weakness that one needs to dream.
Mom! I've just been here with my friends.
You're a runaway. You were always trying to run away, and now I've watched you run away into yourself.
Like technology, I ran away from you towards a higher resolution.
Well, I'm pleased for you. You were always there to be my daughter when I needed one. And so, you've been your mother's daughter as well as her son.
The answer. It's right in front of your face, Greenster.
You caused me to jump when I was on my way to bathe in the cool water.
It's funny. It just sounds really silly, but it's like your brain just does a lot of work when you're not really thinking about anything. I mean, your brain sort of just, it's like it's working. Like you don't think about taking a piss, but you do. Like whatever. I'm sorry. That's like not a great example, but. But your brain is doing all these processes, and I do feel like, have people say, are you having a problem? Spend 10 minutes, take a breath, and then you come back to it 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden it just works out. You have the answer. That's not because like, really, I don't think it's because you took a breath. I just think it's because like your brain figures out the answer while you're taking a break. Like it's like your conscious mind is the last thing to know that you figured it out already.
Like you say, taking a piss is a bad example, but I think with natural, like things that you do, it's like if you're thinking about it, there's probably something wrong. So I don't know why we tend to overthink art so much, because it should be a natural process.
Basically, for me, it's like been like, I think about it like when I see it, like once it's out on a piece of paper, I think about it, but then a lot of times I just feel like I end up writing stuff that is like, even years later, I'm like, oh, cool, that's what I was writing about. Like, that's just because I'm writing about the exact same thing I was thinking about. Like, this is all about this one experience I was having. And, I couldn't not write about it if I wanted to. Like, there's no way for me not to write about this.
Gather round me, all you people, gather round me. Everybody
step inside me. All of you people, step inside me. Everybody down and down, but not too much to make us drown.
Here's the question then. What was it that your mind was trying to solve with War in Paradise?
Well, I mean, a lot of things.
I mean, it seems like obviously there's a lot of things that parallel aspects of what's going on in the world now through War in Paradise, it seems.
Well, I think there's the disinformation thing that I, was kind of introduced around the time when I was writing it. Stuff about, I have had an interest in like world religions and their approach. My own feelings about dying, maybe just even from different drug trips and feeling like I was experiencing near-death experiences, and kind of like even at the end of Aladdin, the character dies and there's like a description of death that's just something that is like imagined by me as what it feels like.
Followed by Jack Dashill's amazing death, which is so funny. Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, it's a good death. But I think even in the Aladdin movie, like the Sultan character is sort of like a bit like really just what ended up becoming kind of like the Trump presidency a little bit. Like, it was just like everyone kind of knew that stuff was coming, and the princess was like a Kardashian. It was actually funny because I think Trump was elected on the Aladdin tour. I remember like that happening. So
yeah, we remember.
yeah, sure. I'm more than sure that it happened then.
So wait, is the character in War in Paradise Blumper? Is that supposed to be a stand-in for Trump?
Yeah, sort of in a way, but it's funny is like it was like the idea was sort of like who would play Trump in a screwball comedy, and the answer that I had come up with was that it would be Rodney Dangerfield. So the inspiration behind Blumper was sort of like if Rodney Dangerfield played Trump in a movie about fascism and stuff, and so the humans in War in Paradise are kind of fascists, but they don't really know it or something, or they kind of know it, but...
Well, and it's hard to tell from reading it, like, which side. So, okay, so, I don't know to what length people have read it. Everyone should. But there's two different sides, like, essentially, right? You have the insects...
Yeah, there's the humans, and then there's the insects. And the humans are sort of more run by a corporate government, or they're overtaken by corporate... They're under a corporate government called Money Bank. But the thing is that this is a lot is also inspired by Starship Troopers. Like I really like that movie, and I wanted to kind of make my own Starship Troopers. And this is sort of, I think, one of the themes of Starship Troopers is the people don't realize that they're the fascists. The symbol of the humans is like the fasces, which is like, if you look at it, it's sort of an axe shaped thing that's surrounded by sticks.
Oh wow!
Which is like a reinforcement for the axe. It was used by I believe it was used by the Italian fascists as their symbol. But so in this way, like the humans in War in Paradise are they're like I actually kind of used it for the costume design. They're sort of inspired by Obelix the Gaul. Which is a comic, Asterix and Obelix, which is like a kind of, it's almost like the Garfield of Europe. It's
it's like the most well-known French cartoon characters.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, it was sort of like a way to show fascism and nationalism as like through the, I guess just because in how like I'm into Garfield or whatever, but like in a way, like to show sort of like the nationalist movement, like moving from like Brexit to Trump and all, whatever you want to call it. I used the costume of the childhood fairy tale of the Europeans.
Wow,
as
that's
their
fascinating.
to do their fascist army or whatever,
Maybe as a way of like, you talked about using kind of those building blocks to give people certain emotions about things. If we're going to, you might sympathize if you don't know you're the fascist. It might make it easier to sympathize or empathize with those humans if they have kind of childhood symbol.
Well, and it's kind of hard it's hard to kind of recognize which side you as the creator kind of sympathize with, because it kind of seems to go both ways throughout the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's like funny because it's like, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, I'm just like, there's not that many good Republican poets.
We all need to research this and find one. Yeah.
Who's your favorite Republican poet?
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart. That's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
But like, I was gonna say as far as the insects are like the AI. They're generated by a company called Infotech, which is run by a sort of Willy Wonka-like lady that is builds the robots, and the robots they kind of like summon up a xenophobic fear from the money bank humans.
Yes.
That they want them out, and they're taking their jobs and they're replacing them. And so the insects are kind of deeply intelligent and sensitive, and they don't even really understand their own role as far as replacing the humans goes. And so they have a war, and the war is started through disinformation, and then the second half is set in the afterlife,
which is awesome.
Yeah, and you get to meet God, and you get to meet all the different layers of the afterlife. And that's something I got from reading Dante. I mean, actually reading Dante has been big for me even since The Wrong Ferrari, like, in a way was sort of like a little bit of like an attempt, to sort of show like a descent into some kind of drug inferno. And I was definitely reading the Divine Comedy when I was writing that screenplay.
So Pausanias is kind of a stand-in for...
Pausanias actually is Pausanias is based on a Greek explorer. Pausanias is the main character of War in Paradise.
What were you talking about, Hannah? Virgilio or something like that? Is that what you were thinking?
Virgilio. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Virgilio, it's funny because like I kind of liked, in as much as like for in Inferno, like each layer gets worse and worse. But what's funny is by the time you get to the Paradise part, each layer gets better and better.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of liked that. I mean, I even like the idea of a plot of a movie where everything started out good and got better. I mean, just because people say you can't make a plot that way. Yeah. But it would be funny to think of like a movie about like a pretty good person that like kept on getting better and more
got
stuff.
More money and like
and like it's a 90-minute film about somebody whose like life is just improving until the end, where it's like the best.
What would that be called? There's like a story arc that would just be a ramp.
Honestly, now that I think about it, I think it might just be called James Bond.
Yeah. Well, hey, Adam, you've been so generous with your time. We should probably wrap up right now. Everybody, thank you so much. Adam, is there anything else that you want to say?
I don't even know. I mean, I guess we could talk about this for hours, but thanks for like letting me indulge talking about it.
This could easily have been multiple parts, so we appreciate everything that you did and agreeing to do this.
Yeah, well, anyone that if you're confused at what we're talking about and you think it's all, you have no idea what the hell we're saying, check out the some of these things on the movies and comics and stuff on my website, which is AdamGreen.info, and just start reading this stuff, watching it.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, and good luck with the screening.
Thank you
so much.
Bye.
Sweated out on the streets of a runaway American dream. At night we ride through mansions of glory and suicide machines. Sprung from cages on Highway 9, chrome wheeled, fuel injected, and stepping out over the line. friend, I wanna guard your dreams and visions. Just wrap your legs round these velvet rims and strap your hands across my engines. Together we could break this trap. We'll run till we drop. Baby, we'll never go back. Whoa, will you walk with me out on the wire? 'Cause baby, I'm just a scared and lonely rider. But I gotta know how it feels. I wanna know if love is wild, babe. I wanna know if love is real. What? Beyond the palace, hemi-powered drones scream down the boulevard. Girls comb their hair in rear-view mirrors, and the boys try to look so hard. The amusement park ride is bold and stark. Kids are huddled on the beach in the mist. I wanna die with you, Wendy, on the street tonight in an everlasting kiss.
Encore dormir debout. Pour les grandes personnes qui n'ont pas perdu leur enfance. Pour ceux qui croient que l'impossible est possible. Pour tous ceux qui ont aimé l'éternel retour, j'ai tiré du conte célèbre de Madame le Prince de Beaumont ce film. La Belle et la Bête. Voici d'abord la Belle. Belle. Même le parquet veut devenir votre miroir. Quant à la Bête, cette bête parle le langage des hommes.
Oui, non. Elle parle comme vous et moi.
Est-ce qu'elle marche à quatre pattes? Qu'est-ce qu'elle boit? Qu'est-ce qu'elle mange?
Il m'arrive de lui donner à boire.
Est-ce un homme? Est-ce un monstre? Est-ce une bête? Non, je ne vous la montrerai pas. Nous devons tuer cette bête.
Et prendre ses richesses.
Mais sais-tu ce que c'est qu'une puissance magique? Je ne crois pas aux puissances magiques.
Mon Dieu!
Ce film était bien difficile à faire. Avons-nous réussi? N'avons-nous pas réussi? Je vous le demande. De toute manière, un pareil film n'était possible que grâce à une équipe de premier ordre. Écoutez la musique de Georges Auric. Voici le nom de notre illustrateur, Christian Bérard. Notre décorateur, René Moulaert. Notre costumier, Marcel Escoffier. Notre chef opérateur, Henri Alcan. Où sommes-nous? À quelle époque? En quel pays? Ceux de Gustave Doré ou de Vermeer de Delft? Reconnaissez les acteurs, les amis, les vôtres.
Qu'est-ce que tu te trouves si mal ici? Pourquoi ne retournes-tu pas chez la bête? Qu'est-ce qui se passe encore?
Mais pauvre sourde, pauvre aveugle, tu peux nous sauver tous de la ruine.
La belle, vous l'avez déjà reconnue. Et vous avez aussi reconnu ces 3 personnages.
Nous irons avec Ludovic et nous tuerons cette épouvantable bête.
C'est grand dommage que cette bête ne réclame pas les garçons. Elle te dévorerait et elle mourrait empoisonnée.
Comte Gay.
Oh, il m'a frappé! Voyons, canaille!
Allez, passe. Tu veux que je te casse la gueule?
Laisse, Ludovic. Comme nous me demander ton mariage.
Conte triste. Conte d'amour.
Mes sœurs sont trop belles. Et elles ont les mains trop blanches.
Belle. Vous êtes la plus belle.
Belle, toujours belle. Peu importe, belle.
Belle, je l'ai vue, sa tête est atroce. Je sais que je suis très horrible.
Notre film est un hommage à la grande mythologie française des contes de fées. Nous espérons que vous viendrez tous le voir. Merci.
You partying tonight?
Oh, yeah, mate. What we getting into?
Cheers. You told me that you spent 30,000 space bucks on cocaine.
I only take cocaine to go to Brooklyn.
Whoa.
My father will only let me go on a date with a prince.
If you're not married in a month, I have to execute you.
Pat, Aladdin, are you okay?
I honestly feel that I'm deaf to my own soul.
Through that entrance is the wreckage of an alien spacecraft. You will come to a garden where a lamp is displayed. This is not an ordinary lamp.
If you wish to possess this lamp, you must answer this riddle correctly. What is the most beautiful language in this world?
Sign language.
The lamp is yours.
First question. Can you fuck it?
Lord, please forgive my transgressions.
The lamp is a printer. I can print you anything that you wish for.
So I was just saying it's time for us to meet a rich person.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a royal prince.
He goes by Prince Average Cabbage.
Come with me on a flying rug ride.
Let's print out some ecstasy. If we had sex, would that be ironic?
They're an actual rebel army that's gonna change the world. Wouldn't it be amazing if we joined them? They call themselves the Magical Americans.
No gods allowed.
You're all under arrest!
This place is starting to look like Hollywood, though we fantasize about filling the stars to their brim. We must change the nature of what we wish for.
I've created a printing cult.
We can finally have anything that we want!
Oh, print me an asparagus chair! Wow! By the way, who are you?
Our prince is not a prince at all, but a recording artist for Zintendo Records.
You're delivering me a shit sandwich and you hope that I enjoy it?
or education or experience can have prepared you for this film. Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain is a film completely outside the entire tradition of motion picture art. It is outside the tradition of modern theater. The Holy Mountain is a film outside the tradition of criticism and review.
What is dying like?
At first, death emerges from within like a blackened, burning insect springing out of your bones, filling up your body with the brightest fluorescent colors, till your body's filled to the brim, and language loses all meaning. Your mind is so fried from contemplating Googleplex that gives way to fractals and complex abstractions. The fluorescents start to spin like a wheel, and that wheel carries you off towards oblivion.